Broadcasting live. Good afternoon, Blockhead Nation, and thank you for stopping by once again. You are listening to, or possibly watching, your favorite Blockhead, the only podcast in the podcasting world that can somehow incorporate the Peanuts comic strip 1 minute and then be talking about MMA and warriors inside the octagon the next. I am your host. My name is Brian Little, and once again, we get to roll out the red carpet. We not only have one, not two, but three amazing guests join us today. But before I introduce them in the proper manner, let me say this. This is a listener-supported podcast for listeners just like you. You can help out tremendously by going to the links at yourfavoriteblockhead.com/blog. All of the links are there for the t-shirts, the merchandise. The downloads have been phenomenal since episode 300, and I thank you so much, Blockhead Nation, from the bottom of my heart. If you're new to the show, please go check out the blog. Downloads are always the most helpful, but to help move along the algorithm, rate, review, and subscribe that are on Apple and Spotify are always super helpful to move along this show. It's been a great ride for the last 7 years, and I'll tell you, I love having guests on. I love being able to talk people up, and here's my chance to talk three of them up. You have heard JK come on this show before from the Against the Fence MMA channel, and they are back. This time, we have Ash, we have Cy, we have JK, we have the whole crew here for Against the Fence MMA channel. Gentlemen, welcome to the Blockhead Hour.
Wow. Hey, no one does a better intro like you, my man, Brian.
Man,
I'm hyped. I'm noted for intros. I gotta tell you, man. I mean, that got me excited. A little bit excited.
I got chills right now.
I wanted to meet myself after that introduction. I was like, who's
you know, Cy, meet your alter ego. He might come out. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, gentlemen, it means so much that you would take a few minutes out of your day to come by and talk MMA with me. If you're a listener and you are not a fan of mixed martial arts, my hope is by the time you finish this podcast or watch this video, you will start giving this sport a chance because there are many seats aboard this train. And what I'm going to do is going to kick around a couple of ideas for these guys who have a very analytical mind and have great MMA IQ inside of the cage, outside of the cage, wherever that might be. These guys have some serious commentary that you're going to enjoy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kicking around an idea that happened recently. We had a main event with Ciryl Gane versus Spivak, and Gane is standing tall. But what needs to be addressed is the man that's sitting at cage side, and his name is Tom Aspinall. It's very possible we'll have a potential fight down the road with these two heavyweights. I want to know your thoughts, all three of you, on what we can expect if we have Ciryl Gane versus Tom Aspinall in the near future. Take it away, gentlemen.
Oh, who wants to go first?
I guess
you're in. Oh, go on. You're in there first, Si. Go on.
Well,
you're in there first.
There's something I always wanted to say about these two particular guys. And if you guys remember about a year ago, when we were talking about this heavyweight division, we talked about how there's a new evolution of fighter we're seeing coming through. You know, in the same way you've seen a new evolution of sportsmen kind of step into industries and just kind of really change the pace of things. We're seeing athletic heavyweight builds now coming in, agility, moving at speed. And I was always excited for the prospect of these guys being Tom Aspinall and Gane fighting each other. I didn't want it to happen too soon. It looks like there's not much else to do but that fight. And I think, you know, it's about time. But it's quite exciting because, as I say, it's the kind of next evolution of fighter in this particular division. They've got the agility, they've got the speed, they've got the range, and they're not just heavy hitters. We're seeing different particular problems in the heavyweight division for the first time in a long time. That, and of course the wrestling of Blaze as well. But it's got that wrestling, and then it's also got that striking combination too. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I think for that particular matchup, I think it's going to go down to whether or not Tom Aspinall can take Ciryl Gane down. Both guys, like you said, are very quick on the feet. I'd imagine it predominantly probably go 5 rounds. It's going to be contested majority on the feet. I got a feeling. In which case, you know, you'd probably favor Ciryl Gane in those areas. Because he's very difficult to hit. His footwork is phenomenal as well. It's just whether or not Aspinall can close the distance, get a hold of Gane, press him against the cage, and then maybe use the cage to take him down. And I think it will come down to those fine moments, whether or not Aspinall can get the job done. It'd either be Aspinall's submission for me or a Gane decision.
You've literally just taken the words out of my mouth, JK. Just obviously, this is why we love the sport of mixed martial arts. Everyone has a different opinion on a fight, and this is why we come together and talk about these things. And you touched upon what I was about to mention, and just say I think that Tom Aspinall will do exactly what John Jones did, use his wrestling. And we've only seen a small bit of Tom Aspinall's game as well, because he keeps finishing dudes in the first round. We've not fully seen how good his wrestling is. We've not fully seen how good his grappling is. So to me, the blueprint has been set by John Jones by just wrestling with and
Francis
Ngannou,
and
exactly.
Francis.
And I think Tom Aspinall gets him down. I think he wins by submission. And just to touch upon that as well, boys, do you remember? I think it was a year and a half ago, or it might have even been 2 years ago. We do a yearly champion prediction. Yeah. And I said that these two would match up, but I did say it would match up about 2 years ago. Not that it would match up 2 years ago, but I said 2 years ago that these two would end up fighting for the belt. So
yeah, look, we're up there. I didn't want it to happen any sooner than it has now, to be fair. And you're right about the whole wrestling ability of Tom Aspinall. That's going to have to come into play here if you're going to sort of be a problem for someone like Garn. But the point still stands. Both of these guys don't move like heavyweights. It's fantastic. So I'm always excited to see him fight. But I guess one thing I want to add to that as well is we saw Francis Ngannou turn into the heavyweight Damian Maia. When he, in the space of one fight, he went away, worked on his wrestling, came back, and he showed us he's got it. What can Cyril Gane do, knowing that that's his weakness? Could he work on it? I mean, you was talking before, JK, about some of his training habits, Gane.
I think he's he's definitely been working at, I think, as of recent. But one thing I should probably add is that I think recently on Ariel's show, Cyril Gane had said that the Tom Aspinall fight didn't really interest him. Now, I think the reason why he said that is I think he'd rather wait and see what the outcome of Jones versus Miocic is going to be. I feel, you've got Pavlovich, who's obviously in the mix as well, because with Jones and Miocic, you've got a potential of both guys retiring after that fight anyway. So, he might suddenly think, hang on, if I pump the brakes a little bit here, not agree to anything, then I might get the opportunity to fight Pavlovich for the vacant belt. And therefore he can skip, fighting Tom Aspinall. If you Cyril Gane, why would you, risk your potential spot really? So, but I think we'll definitely see Gane versus Aspinall down the line. It'll 100% happen.
I'm with you guys. This is why I wanted to have them on Blockhead Nation. Are you hearing the analysis that's going back and forth? This is beautiful. Now, I don't want to sound like I am nitpicking or if I am singling out somebody on here, but if you have not tuned into the last episode where JK came on, he's pretty talented at imitating MMA fighters. And we have had a trend that seems to be going on in MMA where you can't count out the underdog anymore. Sean Strickland is literally holding the middleweight championship of the world, and I didn't think this year that those words would come out of my mouth. But if we can, could we possibly, JK, is there a way that you could give us some type of imitation of the one and only Sean Strickland? You're fairly well known for these imitations, sir. You have the floor on that.
All right.
I should probably say, what's the sort of swearing restriction?
Wait, that's what I was about to say. What's the restrictions here?
I mean, blanket statement. I'll forgive you for it. It'll be all right.
You can bleep it out. Bleep it out if you will. But
if I have to, I'll change the C to an E. We'll do that.
All right, come on, man. You invite me on a fucking podcast. Like this guy right here sits in with a blue background and thinks he's a Smurf or something. Like, come on. Like, my buddy Chris and I, we do podcasts together, but we just like talk about man shit, proper man shit. None of this like fighting, when we talk about fighting, but we're like, we're like experts in this game, man.
How is it true you had to fix your own belt after a day of breaking it? Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I fucking broke the thing after half an hour. Like, it's like made of plastic. Like Dana's not paying the fighters. He's also not splashing out on more money for these belts.
And maybe I should include a scripture of the day somewhere in this after asking for that little debacle. But yeah, I love that even duct tape can fix the middleweight championship belt. But I'll give you that. So not to swerve, but this is why I have to get some of their talents and some of their attributes in as quick as I can in this podcast, Blockhead Nation. You know how it works, but nothing's off limits at this point after doing that. I threw the grenade, and here we are now with all the shrapnel. But what I can ask, guys, we don't have a whole lot going on this weekend with UFC, but we do have a return to the Apex that's coming up next week. But I will say there's a lot that you could recap from our most previous fight. Everything from, Brian Battle's performance to Ige versus Bryce Mitchell, and even, unfortunately, what happened with Gamrot and Fazayev. What are some big highlights that you guys would bring as a recap from last week's UFC Fight Night? You guys can take it.
Well, Ash did the solo watch along by himself.
I think I'm probably like the only one that's probably.
Yeah, that's true.
I had to catch up on some bits, but my feed was flooded with Bryce and the Bible.
Yeah.
So I didn't really see much more outside of the event activity. But yeah, Ash, over to you, bro.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, I think I should take this one and run with it. But obviously, we only went live for the main card, but just the standouts in the prelims. Tim Means doing what he always does and just putting on an absolute clinic against Fialho. And I really thought Fialho was going to sort of win that fight just purely because he needed to. He was on a 2-fight loss streak. It was a kind of fight that his stylistically was a good fight for him because Tim Means always likes to stand and bang. Fialho likes to stand and bang, but Tim Means, being as crafty striker he is, getting the sneaky elbow, sneaky knees in there, doing what he does best and getting the finish. And the standout for me was Charles Jourdain for me, because I really thought that Ricardo Ramos was going to be the one initiating the grappling, and he was going to try and get the submission threats off. But hats off to Charles Jourdain to get the guillotine. I did know he has a decent guillotine. You leave your neck, he's going to grab it, and he did exactly that. And hats off to Charles Jourdain. He's on a 2-fight win streak now, so interested to see what's next for him.
Yeah, and obviously with the Fiziev Gamrot fight, bit unfortunate, of course. We've had knees blow out in fights, or drastic injuries during fights, which has led to them being waved off, of course. Last year, we had Tom Aspinall against Curtis Blades. We had Brian Ortega's shoulder pop out against Yair Rodriguez. We also had, Alexander Rakic, which I think was last year or year before. And then we also had Calvin Cato against Arnold Allen. So
I gotta tell you that the knee injuries are like the worst ones to watch.
Yeah.
It's like getting kicked in the nads, right?
So our boy Modestas Pagauskas is on I know that was a while ago, but he's on the comeback now and on the rise.
It's hard to look at that. Yeah, the injury itself was violent at the time.
Yeah, guide for Fiziev. I mean, I like both Fiziev and Gamrot, but I picked Fiziev going into the weekend. I just felt that he was going to be a lot more sharper on the feet. His takedown defense is phenomenal, and I felt that he was going to be able to take every one of Gamrot's attempts and shrug him off and just really piece him up on the feet. But hey ho, will we see it run back in the future? Who knows? I'd probably going to say no, but I think Fiziev will probably bounce back. Maybe the latter end of next year.
Yeah, I definitely think he'll bounce back. But just like you said there, Brian, just to touch upon obviously Bryce Mitchell as well. We can't not talk about Bryce Mitchell, but for me, leading into this, I was very, very, very confident on Bryce Mitchell. Reason being, we've seen a blueprint of defeating Dan Ige in Evlev. Evlev took him down several times and just controlled him. And that was just a wrestler, not the grappler, the type of Bryce Mitchell. Once he gets you down, he does keep you down, hold you down. But when he gets you down, he was always looks to try and advance, always looks for that submission. I did actually have Bryce Mitchell by submission, but he was close in round number 1. But yeah, it was definitely a striker versus grappler in that fight, and there was only one winner in my eyes, and I'm glad he prevailed.
Everyone's there as well. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I actually would have thought Ige would have had that one, but great to see Bryce bounce back and just
exactly. It's a big win for him.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. You had a fight performance tonight. Would you say that was a performance tonight, Ash?
Who's that for?
It was, wasn't it?
Bryce. Would that be your performance?
That wouldn't have been my performance tonight. No, performance tonight for me was probably Brian Battle, just because every time I count him out, not that I did count him out against AJ Fletcher, because I thought AJ Fletcher, I think that was a step up for AJ Fletcher, but it's just the way Brian Battle has carried himself since winning the Ultimate Fighter. I counted him out in that fight, and then he got I think it was I can't remember the guy he lost to now, but he got dominated. And let me tell you, the 3-round fight, I think the scorecards were off the scales for a 3-round fight. He got dominated, and he's just always impressed me, and I've always counted him out, and he's always proved me wrong.
Yeah, and I think he's also like leveled up his game as well. He's been a little bit more disciplined. You can tell that from just the way he kind of looks coming into a fight night. You know, he looks a lot more shredded. He's adjusted more so to the welterweight division, because during, I think, the Ultimate Fighter, he was mainly, you know, hopping between middleweight and welterweight, whereas now he's like properly homed in, and he looks like a destroyer at the moment.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll tell you what, guys, in a weird way, y'all just gave me 3 segues on this. I kept wondering, man, how is there going to be a moment where I can put Ash in the spotlight? But he really did it himself, because he did the full recap and did the entire ATF show last week on his own. So I got to give him a round of applause just for doing that. And second of all, that gives me a chance to say that you were mentioning Brian Battle, the Ultimate Fighter. You guys recently had Cody Gibson on. So I'll tell you this, if you haven't, friends, Blockhead Nation, you got to go back and look at the ATF YouTube channel and start looking at their Instagram. Look at all of their different social media platforms, because they've got some great snippets and great interviews they've got, especially recently of Cody Gibson. You need to go back and hear this and hear some of the struggles he had with the Ultimate Fighter that are technically out of his hands. And it put a different perspective in my mind. But what that is 1/3 little segue. I got to bring it back. JK, we were talking about Dan Ige and Bryce Mitchell. I'm with you, Cy. I was actually pulling for 50K. I'm like, I was kind of hoping for that one, but I'm not surprised either that Bryce pulled this out. But since Bryce decided to walk out to Richmond, north of Richmond, and hold a Bible above his head, there's a chance for you to drop an imitation here. So let us hear your best imitation of Bryce Mitchell. Take it, my friend.
Hey, I found out a lot recently that the devil is everywhere, and we must take him out at will. My ex-wife, she is the devil. She came over to my house and destroyed my fruit trees. And also, Michael Bisping is the devil as well. And if I could take him out, I would. He's a little bit bigger than me. He walks around like a cyclops. So we must destroy him whenever we can.
Please help me.
Help me.
I'm right there.
How do I pull back the reins on that one?
Somebody give me a crab claw right now.
That's great. That's great. I mean, every time he speaks, I just feel like rallying together and say, yes, sir, don't worry, Bryce, I got you. I'm right there. I'm right there, whatever you need.
That's it. You know, Bryce brings in controlled chaos to them, and I worry about their HR department and their hands being full with Sean Strickland and Bryce Mitchell and all the other ones that are coming, even Sugar Sean O'Malley being in those positions. I wouldn't want that job right now. But I will say this, kind of to bring in what we can expect next week. We'll be returning to the Apex. I want to kind of kick that around. Are there some hidden gems we don't know about, or some of y'all's perspectives on Bobby Green versus Dawson? I want you guys to take that and just kind of talk my listeners, Blockhead Nation, into the building for us.
Man, it's an intriguing fight, isn't it?
I was just about to, mate, the card is actually stacked, like fighter-wise. Like, you've got Drew Dober's on the main card against Ricky Glenn. You've got Joaquin Buckley against Alex Morono. That is a great fight. Joe Pyfer against Hassan. That's going to be a barn burner at the co-main event. Someone's getting knocked out in that fight.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got Alex Hernandez versus Bill Algeo. And then you've got Ian Cutelaba on the main card as well. Chris Gutierrez on the prelims. Batista on the prelims.
What are they doing?
Yes, indeed.
We got Nate Manus as well, who's been on the channel. He's on the prelims.
Do you know what it is as well? Like, it's once you have like a week off, it's almost like you got to come back with force with something a little bit more. It's good, eh? It's good.
Yeah, as for Dawson and Bobby Green, though. Well. Yeah, for Dawson and Bobby Green, though, I mean, both guys are like. I mean, you got Bobby Green is more experienced, but he's really like found his own recently. You know, he's had some really, really good performances in there, and Grant Dawson has just kept on rising. He's become a bit of a problem in the lightweight division. He's not exactly like complete finishing dudes as such, but he's been dominating people in impressive fashion. I think to get a win against Bobby Green. You know, I think especially with Green's credentials and his experience, I think that kind of catapults him into some big fights, potential fights down the line. But the lightweight division is just so stacked, though, man. It's so difficult to kind of pinpoint who's going to be the next one after that.
Yeah, exactly. I see this fight going only one way. Grant Dawson, all he does is come in, looks to grapple straight from the off. It depends, because Bobby Green does have great takedown defense in himself. So if he can stuff a couple and make Dawson pay, then that's when it gets very interesting. I think obviously Bobby Green definitely is going to outstrike him, but it just all depends. Can Dawson get Bobby Green down? If he does, I can see an early submission from Grant Dawson.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We've seen we've seen the blueprint to beating Green out there before, but Green's just flowy, isn't he? He's just
if he gets in his groove and really like frustrates you mentally, then he can lure you into his trap. You know, the fight against Drew Dober, he made a mistake on that one. I think he just got a little bit too carried away.
He was doing well until he wasn't, though.
He
was piecing them up. He was getting better of it, but his hands were low, and you're right, got really confident. And then he'd have to chin out there.
Yeah, but submitting Tony Ferguson was, complete shock horror, to be honest to say. Didn't expect that at all. I thought that perhaps Bobby Green was going to cruise his way to a decision against the Tony Ferguson, which hasn't been himself lately. So look, can Bobby Green kind of beat Grant Dawson and potentially
do you mean
get a rematch against some of the guys in the top half?
Do you mean El Cucumber?
El Cucumber, that's it.
Why did I not see that being thrown out there? Okay. I'm gonna have to clarify. I'm gonna have to clarify for the there's no denying on the ATF side, but for the Blockhead Nation, let me help you out. I think there was a point where I was commentating on their live channel, and there was something I was talking about, and I was using Tony Ferguson's word El Kukui, but autocorrect seemed to work against me that day, and what came across the screen was El Cucumber. And that has not gone away since. So I've gained 2 other monikers with ATF. I've gained Triple B and I've gained El Cucumber. And I've got to explain all of those to my nation that's just going, what are you talking about? So I know it's clear as mud, but we'll run with the El Cucumber moniker for a while. But I will say this, guys. You guys are giving me so much in-depth knowledge, and I'm loving every bit of it. And I wish we could get in depth to Yusuf versus Barbosa in the future, but we've got 3 amazing pay-per-views that are coming up down the road that my listeners need to know about too. So could we take a minute to look at Fight Island? Could we take a look at UFC 294, Makhachev versus Oliveira 2, and some of the other big moments that are coming out of this fight? I'll let you guys kick that can around for a while.
I mean, the next few pay-per-views is just literally an MMA fan's orgasm right there. There's just we've got some proper banging main events and co-main events as well. Makhachev versus Oliveira, for me, we've had a recent run of new champions every pay-per-view we've had. Makhachev dominated last time out, really nullified any submission threat that Oliveira could try on the ground. Typical Sambo kind of style. Smothered him, and Makhachev capitalized on a bit of a mistake from Oliveira and was able to get that head and arm choke in. This time around, Oliveira was kind of blaming that his mindset wasn't kind of quite there come fight night and all this and that. He might feel that he's kind of a bit reignited this time out after that impressive win against Beneil Dariush. If we get that Charles Oliveira, who's on his absolute A game, then this could be a much closely contested bout, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. Yeah, watching it, Jeff, I didn't even hear it from Oliveira after the fight to talk about where he was mentally. I could see it. I was like, he just seemed off. What's going on? Why is he attacking in this way? Like, it just didn't make any sense. Like, he should have kept the range. He just couldn't run right into danger. And I just didn't get it.
That's what he does, though, isn't it? Though, to be fair,
yeah, he's kind of style, though.
He does that because he doesn't like, his pressure is so good. He doesn't care about getting hit because obviously this is crazy. Obviously, the Charles Oliveira of old would have obviously wilted under like getting hit or whatever and just wilt under that pressure. But he's the one making people wilt now and putting the pressure on these guys, and he doesn't care about getting taken down because there's not many fighters. We've seen it. As soon as he gets knocked down, they don't want to go down there with him. But obviously, Islam jumped straight in there on guard with Oliveira. and it was just too much. But like JK said, I think it's going to be a lot closer. I still think Islam's going to be too much for him. But yeah, I would love to see. I would love to see, because Islam's not really been like tested since obviously he got knocked out years ago. But he's not really.
Volk tested him proper though.
Test him, but this is the thing. I think Islam done a lot better than what people think. Like,
you reckon?
Fight. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are saying Volk won and this and that. Volk put up a great challenge, but I think Islam done a lot better than what people thought.
Yeah, I see why you might say that. I mean, he's still yet to really, I don't know, prove.
He's not really been put in. He wasn't really put in danger too much.
It's a close fight, but he's not been put in any danger. Yeah, you're right. Spot on with them words.
Yeah, but I think, you know, I remember in the last breakdown for Makhachev versus Oliveira, you know, I think I highlighted some of the areas which Oliveira, or some of the things that Oliveira needed to do when on the ground with Islam, and I think one of those things was attacking leg locks. No, it was more or less attacking leg locks, to be honest, because I noticed he was doing that a lot against Kevin.
Kevin Lee.
Kevin Lee, that's it. I couldn't think of his name then. It's Kevin Lee, because obviously Kevin Lee was quite skillful on the feet, but very good wrestling as well. And every time when Kevin Lee got Oliveira down, Oliveira was just attacking leg locks. You know, if you able to pull it off, great, but you'd be able to create a scramble so that you can get back to your feet. And I think that if Oliveira is able to do that, you know, he wants to be more on the feet on this fight, and I think that would be his key to remaining on the feet.
Yeah, this is why I love breaking fights down with you, JK, as well, because like creating a scramble, and you've got someone as talented as Charles Oliveira that snaps up anything just like that, and that's a perfect sort of game plan. Not that you would use it as a game plan, but if for instance you get taken down, 100% attack them leg locks, make Islam scramble, and then you jump on any mistake that he makes. Love that. Yeah,
as long as you don't let Islam get into half guard or side control, then I think that's where it could get a little bit tricky.
You have to keep some gap between the body, but that's his sambo style.
Yeah, I know that's really gonna be hard. It's easier said than done.
Any space between the bodies, and it's what makes it so nullifying. It's such a great, and it was really great to see them. It was really great to see the matchup between Sambo style wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at its rawest. I think.
Yeah.
Not many other divisions have really offered us that sort of play between those two styles so beautifully. But no, I think it's an exciting card as well. The time's going to be great. It's going to be over in
yeah,
we're going to be doing the full watch along for that as well. Going to catch the whole
prelims to main card.
A lot. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a spinning roll back. So, and you got Chimaev as well in the co-main.
Yeah, mate, I was just about to say, I don't want to jump off without not mentioning Chimaev. Obviously, we put a post on the social media like, if Chimaev beats Costa, is he there for the title? Is he going to be next in for the title?
That's a big topic, isn't it? You know, a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people saying yes purely because he sells. So, and look, with the UFC and the way they're going these days, you know, you can easily say it. You can make the excuse, well, he's beaten a former title challenger, but a lot of people feel that the likes of Dricus du Plessis, and various other people are just ahead of Hamza in the division.
Imagine Izzy comes back and beats Hamza when Hamza's holding the belt. Just
imagine Izzy. Oh, I'm gonna hold that one on a little bit. We're gonna get to that topic in a second. Again, these guys give me so many segues that I want to run with, and I can't because even now I'm like, I know I was the same way when you talk about Kevin Lee. I wanted to say Motown. I was like, that wouldn't have helped you with the last name. But you know, as much as I don't want to sidestep Blades and Almeida, I mean, I know that, guys, once again, if we have some gaps in this show, you can go back and watch the ATF MMA channel. I'm going to plug them quite often. They are always welcome here, but we've got to get to UFC 295. We got to look at MSG. We got to look at Jones versus Miocic and just that stacked card. So let me allow you guys once again to take it and just embrace UFC 295 in November.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I think Stipe is, I think, a bit of an anomaly at the moment because he's been out for some time. There has been talks of that he's put on some muscle mass now as well, and he's looking pretty insane in terms of shape. against a John Jones who, we didn't see much of him in his heavyweight debut against Cyril Gane because he made it look so easy and was able to take Gane down and submit him. Against Stipe, do you think that maybe fans might be overlooking it a little bit? Because Stipe really caused John some problems in this fight.
Here's the thing. When it was first announced, we kind of saw the reaction immediately from Stipe, didn't we? And I know you kind of want to ignore that, and there's a whole kind of U-turn here about how this now is on, but he just didn't really look like he wanted it when it was first.
I think
he didn't want it.
No, I think there's a lot of personal probably things behind the scenes, I think. But not only that, I'm not sure where his relationship is at with the UFC currently, because he should have got a rematch against Francis Ngannou. So and he was step-sided. So it was kind of done for. I think it's Francis, a lot of things going on money-wise and wants and all that sort of thing. He was being quite difficult, so he had to kind of deal with that as well. But also, you did touch the nail on the head earlier when you mentioned about this being quite a unique one, not just Stipe in himself, but this matchup. Because we haven't really seen much from John Jones at this weight class, we haven't really seen Stipe Miocic for a while as well. We're really kind of going in there on reputation. It's a legacy fight, at the end of the day, you've got the best to ever do it at light heavyweight against the guy at heavyweight who currently has the record for title defenses in Stipe. And, a lot of people, you could make arguments that Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Purely on that factor.
You've got to put him up there. You've got to put him up
Mount
there.
Rushmore,
with the amount of wins that he's had in this heavyweight division. But again, obviously the evolution of this sport and just what we touched upon at the start of the podcast, like the way the heavyweight division has changed over the years and the evolution of fighters that are coming up now, like you said, like the Curtis Razor Blaze, athletic, Tom Aspinall, athletic, and obviously Cyril Gane, athletic, and then the likes of Jolton Almeida, that is an absolute demon at the moment. But for me, it's going to be such an intriguing fight because we all saw the blueprint of obviously everyone when it was Jones versus Gane. Everyone was saying Jones's wrestling is going to be a massive advantage in it. But then you look at obviously now Stipe. Stipe's got that wrestling in his locker. Yeah. How is Jones going to play at this? Like he's been historically. Interesting fight. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and that's it. It's reputation really going up against reputation, and that's what makes it so big fight. But I do feel like maybe the style of the fight itself is probably going to be under-delivered based on what we might all be expecting, given that being the narrative. But you're right. I mean, the wrestling from Stipe is going to be interesting to see against John Jones. But the thing I like about John Jones is he is adaptable. He's quite dynamic. Wrestling isn't is be all and end all.
I think I think Jones is a better wrestler, I think, than Stipe. It was his first discipline at the end of the day. And I think he was. I mean, I don't know, because obviously being from the UK, we don't really know too much about wrestling. But I don't know if maybe Brian might be able to touch point on what Jones was like back in his day in wrestling, where he was a bit of an animal at that, But yeah, I do know for sure that was his sort of main.
Yeah, and we can't leave this card without mentioning, JK, are you ready? We can't mention without mentioning.
For those who can't see, this is Alex Pereira.
Mate.
They are jumping the gun on me, and now I have to address it. It's the thing. What you're missing, in case you're not tuning in, Blockhead Nation, is the question is Izzy fan or not Izzy fan? That is the question. Sai, are you an Izzy fan or are you an Alex fan? Because this has been the debate. You can go off body language and mannerisms. We need to get that cleared up right here and now. Let's hear the debate between Izzy and Alex Pereira. Lay it all out, gentlemen.
All right. So here it is. And I'm looking right down the barrel of the camera for this one. Ooh. So here we go. I have to tell you, honestly, I'm a fight fan out of boast.
Oh, no, that's such a...
I'm a fight.
That is a pussy. That is such a... Oh, my God. That's the word you are, not an Izzy fan.
Look, here's the thing. When Alex... I recognize Alex Pereira's abilities and strengths, and I have to hold my hands up in situations. I don't hate on the guy. I don't. But I do want to talk about Izzy Adesanya. Like, the reason why I'm so passionate and I sort of stand by him a lot is because he was one of my first loves in the sport. Like he is my favorite fighter stylistically. But also he really resonates nostalgically with a lot of my childhood too, in terms of like the Airbender from the Avatar. And his name.
And now you're pulling back because he's won win in his last three.
I'm just like, man, this guy's a bit of me. Like he watches the anime and he kind of embodies a lot of the characterisms from it. And I've seen anime as well and those cartoons growing up.
Check his nails, JK. Check them nails.
Oh, there he is with the black nails.
You know, I did say one time on one stream, I said, you know what, I don't really get painting your nails, but there's only 2 people in life who ever get me paint my nails. Potentially, it'd be my daughter when I'm older, or Izzy.
I will tell you, one person who did pull off painted fingernails fairly well was Chris Lieben, and now we got him judging the fight. Yeah. So it comes down to perception is reality, and my perception of Israel Adesanya. I don't mean to cut you off. It's kind of like I had to kind of roll with this thought now because Israel Adesanya has proven to me when it comes to the middleweights, he's got to be the Kobe of this generation. If you're going to pick the MJ of the middleweights, I would have to give it to Anderson Silva, just for the longevity, just for the legacy that he left behind. But when it came to Israel, is this the guy that is going to surpass him? Because you're always looking for that in the sport. Who is going to surpass Mike Tyson? Yes. Who's going to surpass Tyson Fury? Who's going to surpass MJ? Well, Kobe and LeBron have been working at that for so long, and there's always the nostalgic crowd that won't let it go. So that's where I say that at this point, we have to kind of give Izzy, currently I'd give him the Kobe status, just for the sake of, if he were to go in and do a longer stretch as the middleweight champion again, I'd probably give it to him. But him and Alex, I told people on this podcast, I said the one guy who could stop him is Alex. I didn't say he could stop him in the redemption match. And sure enough, that's not what happened. So I just kind of, for those that were waiting for it, you can tune in on Your Favorite Blockhead podcast and get the truth from Cy. You just got it now in real time.
There it is. Thanks.
No, exactly.
Thanks for giving the platform.
You've said it there. Like I love the way you broke that down there, Brian. Just to touch upon, obviously, everyone will have their opinions on obviously who's the best middleweight, but for me, it's still going to be Anderson Silva, just purely because he had that aura about him, and it was like, who's going to beat this guy? And for Izzy, I don't know what it was, but he just didn't have that nostalgia and that sort of aura about him.
He did for me.
He has technical ability, but does he have the ability to cross over the way?
Of course. I know. Obviously, Izzy's beaten Silva. I'm just saying during the era, and obviously that was.
I think it may have been. I mean, part of it might have been the fact that like Anderson Silva was doing the whole like Matrix movements and stuff, and at the time it was like nothing that we've seen before. What he did to Forrest Griffin, when he went up the weight class and did all that, and then fired that 1-2 that just put him down, and again against Stephan Bonner, rest in peace as well, when he was against the cage, hands down, and then just blitzed him, and it was like never seen it before. So I could get that element. I think is something to do with it. I
got it. So the sort of styles of Izzy and the way you use the kickboxing, that for me was just quite exciting. So that kind of gave me like, man, this guy's fast, he's quick, and that head movement he's got as well. Yeah, but he's not too flashy as Anderson Silva certainly was, but he could back it up, and he could afford to be.
Right. That's it. From a technical standpoint, yes, I get what you're saying, Cy. And I'll go, it just comes down to when you look at Anderson, do you have the background you had of being the guy who stopped Chris Lieben, who stopped Rich Franklin, who had the historic rivalry with Chael Sonnen that brought so many people into watching before Conor McGregor ever stepped into the cage on this side, but probably still coming through Cage Warriors. It's just one of those, sometimes the narrative is going to be the perspective people will buy into, and Izzy has the technical ability, but something about his ability to reach people the way Anderson did and actually go from villain to lovable face. It's just he had all those components, and Izzy definitely had the technical ability that could surpass it. It's just there's a couple of roadblocks that are just who are we to say that he shouldn't be eventually in the top 5, top 10 greatest of all time? But every time you look at a top 3 list, you always see 3 names in there. You see Anderson, you see Jones, and you see GSP. Anytime there's a legitimate one, those 3 are always there.
But listen, and also one thing I do have to mention, no, did you slipped in Frank Edgar there, Ash? But you do have to also mention for every fighter that stands in that position, they all have to stand the same test or go through the same trial. And that's really standing up to the next generation of fighter that comes through.
Yes.
So Izzy, for example, has owned the division in his time when he was at the peak. We've seen him have a few losses here, but that's only become from the next generation of fighter coming through the division and stopping him. But everyone who was in there when he entered, he cleared it out. He owned it. He made it his bitch. He really did. And now it's just a case of he really did. Yeah, really did confidently as well. And we see the same thing with Shevchenko. She has stopped multiple generations of fights coming through, but this particular generation coming up now, it's giving us some issues.
Yeah,
so,
mate, that's a perfect example, man. Perfect example.
Right. For diehard MMA fans like ourselves, I embrace everything you just said, Cy. It just comes down to, as a whole, to get more people into the building. You know, there's just something about that where Anderson did this, and Izzy could still potentially do that if he were able to retain it. It's an interesting discussion, but from a diehard MMA fan, I concur with you so much. And you know, again, these guys make me better when it comes to being an MMA fan. And I don't want to forget one huge gem, the Christmas present we get for December when we go back to Vegas. Can we take a look at the last pay-per-view for this year? Just some big moments for UFC 296 before I plug you guys and we call it a day.
Of course, Edwards versus.
Finally, they got it done.
This should have happened. Do you think this matchup should have?
Yeah, they were. Well, no. I mean, I knew they were targeting it, of course. I think there's a lot of politics involved because of it. I thought this card was meant for the headline of McGregor versus Chandler. Obviously, for certain testable reasons, that fight is not going to take place in this date. But look, Edwards versus Covington, I think, is a very intriguing one, of course. Colby's not has been very active in recent years. He's only been sort of seeking title fight opportunities. I think this one has presented it to himself because he struck a deal with the UFC.
I always wonder what he's got over the UFC, you know.
It's purely because of the Masvidal charges. You know, the UFC clearly wanted to make a fight against him and Masvidal. They made the fight, didn't they? And they clearly wanted to get Masvidal back in there and compete.
Yeah,
I think it was
returning, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Colby dropping the charges had something to do with him getting the next potential title fight.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
You got Belal Muhammad there. A lot of people obviously may not, fighter-wise, like Belal Muhammad, but obviously his resume speaks for itself, and obviously he's on that win streak that he's on for a reason. Stylistically, though, I still think that the Kobe Leon is more interesting than Leon versus Muhammad, because we've seen a part of Muhammad versus Leon, and we saw Leon was piecing Muhammad up. Obviously, wobbled him with that head kick to start off with. Obviously, we've seen what that head kick can do. But if Kobe can put a pace on Leon, we've seen obviously what Usman done to Leon and put a pace on him, but then Leon obviously struck up the headshot dead. But I'm very intrigued in this fight. Obviously rooting for Leon. But I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't actually mind it if Kobe won, though. He's slowly growing on me. I don't know why.
You just want the complete puzzle, don't you? The end of 2023, the complete puzzle of Sean O'Malley champion, Sean Strickland champion, and Colby Covington. But I think there's
only one thing that could happen next after that.
Bryce Mitchell. That'd be
that's us MMA fans right there. There it is.
I was going to say the end of the world, but that can happen.
But I think Leon's capable of. Look, his takedown defense has really shown recently. It showed against an Usman. Yes, okay, you could flip it and say, well, Usman, his knees are not quite right, and he's had injury issues and stuff. You could, that could play into it a little bit. But I think we're going to see Leon stuff some takedowns from Colby. I think we will.
We're going to have to.
Yeah, I can't see it. And that's where he's going to shine, make him pay for it. But like I said, if Kobe can get his game plan on, then it's going to be a long night for Leon. But then roles reversed. If Leon can stuff them takedowns and make Kobe pay, it's going to be a long night for Kobe.
It's the cardio factor for me. I think that's going to be more intriguing. The longer the fight goes on, it's because Colby can put a pace and maintain it throughout. It's whether or not he can physically make Leon drown in those later rounds.
Yeah. How can we not talk about El Cucumber against Paddy? We've got to talk about that fight again.
Yeah,
and I said this during the live watch along last week, saying that we were all gunning for the Paddy versus Matt Favola fight. It made sense in a lot of ways. Obviously, Matt Favola was gunning for it again. He did not need or necessarily. He shouldn't have called for this fight because he's higher in the rankings. He's basically given Paddy a chance to be ranked. But I've got to give it to the UFC for holding out. They've done a good fight. Obviously, Saint Denis versus Matt Favola. That's a great fight. Again, a lot of people would prefer the Paddy versus Favola, but the UFC are very smart in making this fight between Tony Ferguson and Paddy. Reason being, for me, they're kind of protecting Paddy like they did Sean O'Malley, and we all know Tony Ferguson's a name in the UFC. And if Paddy Pimblett goes in there and beats a name of Tony Ferguson, we are honestly off to the races with Paddy Pimblett because he will definitely have a ranked number next to his name on the Tuesday after.
What a way to enter the division as well.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Go and beat. I know a lot of people will say so. Wash Tony Ferguson, and he got to tend to agree. He's not the same old Tony Ferguson of old, which I do agree. But the main factor is Tony Ferguson is still a name, and we've got to agree on that. He's still a name. And I think if Paddy goes in there and beats him, then again we're off to the races with Paddy Pimblett.
But I think we've also got to cling on to the factors of some of Tony's recent losses. He's been really unlucky, and obviously the Bobby Green one probably not so much. But the Nate Diaz fight, he was looking great in that until he got caught. Sorry,
Chandler won.
Yeah, the Michael Chandler one as well. Yeah, I was getting to that. You know, he had a phenomenal first round in that one.
Until that kick that took him down. Yeah, he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
He has fought, like you said as well. You got to look at the resume of who he's fought as well. I know I said he's on a downhill trajectory, but the guys he's fought at the top of this lightweight division, and
experience.
We could go on forever talking about how stacked the lightweight division is. It will always be stacked, and the guys Tony Ferguson has fought by Bobby Green have been killers.
Yeah, to be honest, as an early prediction, I would be actually in favor of picking Tony Ferguson in that
one.
Just based off of previous performances. Okay, like you said, Tony Ferguson's lost. They have been the cream of the crop of the division. When you go back to Paddy Pimblett's recent fight, he scraped that Jared Gordon fight in a fight that not a lot of people felt that he won. A lot of people felt that Jared Gordon should have got the nod that night. And if he's struggling to beat someone like Jared Gordon, what's he going to do coming up against a Tony Ferguson who's very experienced?
I hear that, but also you can probably attack this from a sort of superstition angle too. And in a sense that you can just play your cards and numbers. A law of averages suggests that he's bound to win one of these days. You know what I mean? after a little speak like that, it's like, when you're at the traffic lights and you're just looking at it and it's red, you're like, now. No, it's like the same thing every time Tony Ferguson steps into the ring, into the octagon. It's always a bit like, okay, he's going to win now. Surely he's going to win now. Surely, and then eventually it will come. You'll be right one of those times. So I think it's probably going to also hit on that level too. I think it's about time he does get a win, especially before he.
You could flip it as well. It could regenerate Ferguson's career if he goes in there and beats a star of Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah,
it might. Every time he fights, same thing. I tend to think he's going to be leaving. He's going to retire. Maybe he's waiting until that win before he does.
That is where I need my opening, because here's the thing. I have gone back and forth with this fight so many times, and I'm still undecided. I'm going to give you guys YFB's pros and cons. And I'm going to say the pros are, I can't look away. I can't look away from a fighter that I respect to a guy who I am anticipating to be one of the next big guys that, he's definitely carried over similarly what Conor McGregor did. He's done this with Liverpool and bringing his fans over to Vegas. The pros are, I can't look away. I've got to know what happens with this fight. The cons for me are, if Paddy wins, it's not necessarily a great outcome for him because he just beat one of the most respected guys in MMA. MMA fans, how are they really going to accept that? 2, if he loses to Paddy, that's not good for him either, because you're coming off a guy who has a 6-loss rate. Even though they were killers, people look at the rankings and look at that. Most people don't look in depth like we do. They go, oh, he's lost 6 fights, and now he's lost to him. I don't see a great outcome for Paddy on this one. I see a great venue. I see a great fight. I see a great buildup. I see post-fight, not really good things happening for Paddy right away with this one. When it comes to Tony Ferguson, it hurts because I'm like, man, are y'all really trying to throw a beloved guy like El Cucumber to the MMA gods and sacrifice him? Or two, do you really think that low of this guy who has been one of the most gritty and one of the most beloved fighters for the MMA fans as a whole? So it is so conflicting for me. The pros are I can't look away. The cons are what real good comes out of this except for a win for Tony Ferguson. Take it. You can dissect it and destroy it if you want to. Feel free, gentlemen.
What I'm hearing from you at the moment is, and I kind of stand by what you're saying, because a lot of people have been saying what they might like to happen and who wins. But what you're saying here is effectively you're looking at lose-lose. You know, there's no real winner there other than maybe just an exciting fight on the day. That's the best thing you can hope for. The best thing you can hope for is that whoever loses goes out in their shield and it's just respect and goes out in
sure.
Yeah.
And we don't know how the crowd is going to respond either.
Yeah,
we don't know how MSG is going to respond to this either. We can consider that.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, it's well said, and I reckon the best worst case scenario, the best of a bad situation, it's probably gonna be. It's just it'll be Paddy largely because you just think he's got that future. People spoke about him being like next Conor McGregor.
I just don't think he's quite got the ability though. That's the thing.
I agree with you, but this is. I think we would have to see this and some more improvement from him, just to hope for something like that. So there might be some hope in Paddy, but then with El Cucumber, it's just satisfying those hardcore fans at least, and maybe he can rest in peace one day.
That's it.
Yeah, the thing is with Paddy is I don't really see someone who's striving to become a champion. I see someone who's striving to make as much money as he can in such a short period of time.
For himself, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like I can't see much improvements in his game in this fight, purely because he's had a lot of troubles with injuries. Of course, he's had that ankle injury since the Jared Gordon fight. Right. So I don't think he's had enough time. If he were to lose against Tony Ferguson, I think the best option for him would be to take at least a year out. Just to work on craft. Without any injuries or anything like that, stay in the gym.
You're talking about a fighter who was offered the contract to join the UFC and then said, "Nah, I'm not ready yet."
I know which is smart, but now he's in the UFC. He's got a taste of the UFC money, So there's a big leap and a big difference there. Yeah, okay, he can go on to do even more, but I think if his mindset is really to do that, then he needs to at least own up to some of the areas of the game that he's lacking and really work on them.
Yes.
Yeah, no, 100%. And just last little thing for me, just like I've said to you boys before, I can't see Paddy Pimblett being in there with the top 6, top 5 of the division. I just really can't see it.
No.
Like, could you see Paddy versus Gamrot or Paddy versus Vazev? I just can't see it, just purely because I don't think Paddy would get there. And that's my honest hands up truth. I just can't see it. Yeah, he may beat the bottom end of the division, like fair enough. But to see him in there with the likes of like Gamrot, Vazev, Dariush, Charles Oliveira, for instance, I can't see it. I'm sorry.
I couldn't see him being in there with Drew Dober, and who Drew Dober just got beat by.
Yeah.
Who just called him out. So you guys are saying the same thing I'm saying. It's just like I said, there's so many pros and cons to it. It's just, man, we're spoiled fans. We wanted Matt Frivola to get what he asked for, but here's where we are. This is what we got, and it's still a very complex fight that I can't not watch.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. But for the duration and it's going to be a nice little Christmas present at least. That card.
Yes.
Pantoja Royval.
Yeah.
You've got Rachmanov versus Thompson. That's going to be a banger as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Luque against Ian Machado Gary, who is 4th fight of the year as well. I've highlighted earlier on the socials. So that's pretty
It's going
impressive.
to give us some
Fight of the year,
for our most value player this year.
Oh yeah, we're still
That's going to come out around Christmas too. We tend to have this most valued player, fighter of the year, based on who fights the most, who's really increased the rankings the most as well. So we'll be doing that around Christmas time too, so you guys can really get a view on our thoughts.
Which that means, Blockhead Nation, you're going to be tuning in for a lot more content coming from ATF, because you just heard, I love those fights you just talked about. Ian Gary and Luque, I'm in. When it comes to Wonder Boy taking that fight against Rachmanov, hats off to you for showing your grit. I'm very impressed with that. Total respect to Wonder Boy. But yes, we're going to keep on pushing ATF and your channel. And I will say this, Blockhead Nation, you cannot tell me you can't find their panels. Everything is listed today in the blog. I'm going to say it once again, yourfavoriteblockhead.com/blog. The website, the YouTube page, the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, all handles for social media are provided. You are missing out if you're not tuning in, and you have no excuse. I've made it so easy for you to find these guys. But to be fair, before we wrap up and we put a bow on this one, are there any further plugs that you guys, Ash, Sai, JK, want to leave with my listeners or anybody that's viewing in on YouTube? If you want to leave any plugs, this is your chance to do it, gentlemen. You have the floor once again.
Hey, stick around. I mean, I'm not sure when you're going to be hearing this podcast necessarily, but we do have a Fighter Q&A lined up this coming Monday. What's the date on Monday? I actually don't even know. 2nd of October, that's right, with Kyle Nelson, a Canadian MMA fighter, UFC. And he's on a 2-fight win streak at the moment. So we're going to be talking to him about his last fight and what's potentially next for him. So do make sure you check out our channel, and you've got the notifications on as well. So then you know when we're live to talk to Kyle Nelson, and you can join in, get your questions asked. We don't leave any stone unturned, especially with the fans. Fans come first with this channel, and and everything else that's got to come your way.
That's it. I think that's one of the unique things about ATF itself, isn't it? It's just, the way we do things is we like to create a platform for you guys to have your voice heard. So if you're tuning live on the weekends, then look fantastic. You're going to be in the chats, you're going to be shouted out, and we'll be talking about the fights together. And if it's for these fighter Q&As, you get those questions answered or asked and answered there and then, basically. So it's quite exciting. But I have to say as well, amongst all of that, it's that's how we met, which is, I have to say, he is actually my favorite blockhead.
It's true.
It was how we met you, man, and it's fantastic. And thanks so much for this. This incredible introduction, it's an incredible opportunity to share this platform with you and talk and really get under the hood about what's to come up. And, I am excited about what's to come this year fight-wise, and excited to do many more of these with you as well, man. But your favorite blockhead, you are my favorite blockhead.
You are the man. And just to touch on what JK and Sai were saying as well, and obviously, if you haven't heard Brian say it already, obviously we do weekly watch-alongs. Don't watch alone, watch along, and join our amazing community. Brian's the main man now.
Yeah.
Gentleman and a scholar, I have to say.
Flying the flag.
I do appreciate, absolutely. I do appreciate the kind words. But again, I had the opportunity of a lifetime to talk to you guys. I hope that I've rolled out the red carpet enough for you guys that we will welcome you back in the future. But those that are listening in, whether it's through audio or watching this video right now, every Saturday that I'm going to come back with you with more content. We're going to talk about peanuts. We'll talk about MMA next week. We will continue moving forward with this platform. We're over 300 episodes deep, and we got many more coming. So I will say this. Thank you once again, guys, for tuning in. This is your favorite blockhead. I've been joined by the ATF MMA channel, and we will see you guys next Saturday. Same blockhead time, same blockhead channel.
Yeah. Fucking A.